This time of year, there's a topic that comes up, and as soon as it's said, people don't stop talking about it. The weather forecasters love to build the drama, and every time we see some kind of a disturbance out in the Atlantic, it's hurricane time. So now we're thinking about naming a storm and all the things that go with it. Today we're going to talk about what you need to know about living with hurricanes in Florida, and that's basic preparation, the reactions, what's real, what's dramatization. We're going to go through all of that, so stick with us. We're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name's Cunha. I'm a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida, and if you're looking for a channel to tell you a little bit about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, then this is the channel for you. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the little bell to make sure you're notified every time a new video comes out, and go ahead and leave a comment down below about something I might have missed. I'm getting calls from people every day, and I love it. If you've got a question you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. Okay, as I said before, we're going to be discussing that one topic that everybody is always a little bit apprehensive about until they experience one, and that's a hurricane. We've got the Miami hurricanes. There's more than one kind of hurricane, but the one we're talking about today is that storm that has a propensity to tear things up, to put a lot of fear into people, and to really just stir the pot when we get into the month of June, and it goes all the way till the month of November. You've got a good 6 months worth of time to kind of stew on this and hear these weather reports and get ready to be inundated with all kinds of get prepared, because you never know. Like everything I discuss, it's all about perspective and experience. So I'm going to be giving my perspective on a good portion of this, and I'll give you some of what the insight that I hear from other people about what they think about the hurricanes and how it's affected them. Hurricanes can be destructive. I'm not blind to that. I understand that. A lot of people have been affected by it. And there are many different times that these storms come close by us. So it's not always going to be a direct hit that we experience. And those are the ones that really are devastating. That's what Andrew was down in Miami. I think it was back in '92. Yeah, that was devastating. That was Cat 5. That was, I think, the biggest recorded storm and had the most damage. So I get it. That's direct path. Now, I will tell you, many of these storms, if you look at them on a satellite, you'll see they cover the entire state. They're massive storms. So yes, most everybody's affected by it in one way or another, and it could just be a lot of wind and rain, much like the storms that we do get in the summertime. If you have not been in Florida in the summertime, it's not just the heat that people talk about. It's the driving rain and windy thunderstorms. They're something else to behold. It's almost like a tropical storm when some of those roll in, and you literally will have to pull off the roadside in many cases because your wipers just don't go fast enough. First thing I want to talk about, before the storm is even here, before it even gets named, there's something you have to do first and foremost. Get your insurance straight now. Once that storm's named, you're not changing your insurances. So if you have the hazard and the wind insurance already taken care of, rest easy. If you're in a floodplain, and even if you're not in a floodplain, you might want to consider flood insurance. Reason behind that, flood insurance is specific to rising water. Therefore, if any damage happens from rising water, you have to have flood insurance to have it covered. Hazard insurance will not cover it. So, for myself, I happen to live in a X zone. That means I don't need flood insurance. Yeah, and I thought, hey, I paid this the first year, I'm not going to pay it anymore. Save myself the extra $500-$600 a year. But you know what, in the grand scheme, $500 or $600 a year is a very small price to pay for peace of mind. So I'm starting my policy back up. Yeah, it's not that much. It's going to cover me for up to $250,000 worth of damage. And yes, that is as far as flood insurance carries a policy, is $250,000. Now, your insurance agent might be able to get you additional coverage on top of that as a separate policy, but most flood insurance policies only go to a max of $250,000. With the insurances, when you're getting these straight, there's certain things you want to know about your home. Do you have the third nail on your hurricane strap? Let's talk real quick about how this whole construction thing went with the storms. So every storm that we have come through, there's something that's generally learned about what our homes were able to put up with and what could be done differently or better. So back in the day when things first started down here in Florida, yeah, wood frame homes were still made. And at one point they started seeing them come apart during these storms. So they decided to make them heavier. They put the stucco on the outside. That's a concrete base that they're smearing on the outside of these walls. So it made the homes heavier. Well, then the roofs started popping off. So they said, hey, you know what? We need to tie these things down. So they strapped down the trusses. They put the nails in those straps that I just talked about, the hurricane straps. And by the way, now it's 3. They put 3 nails in it to completely cover you on that and save you the money for the insurances. The next thing they started finding out was, hey, the whole home was lifting off. So then they have rebar now down inside the footers, and that is then tied into the walls and up into the straps and holding the roof down. So now it's a big cage that's now encompassed. What's the next thing that happened? The windows blew out. So guess what? Now we have to cover the windows. That was after Charlie. 2005, the new building code said every home has to have shutters. Before that, if you buy a home here right now in Florida, and it's say a 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s home, there's a good chance it doesn't have any kind of storm protection. So you may want to consider having somebody come out, drill the bolt holes so you can put up your own panels. There's also a number of different styles you can use. High impact windows are now being put in with many builders, and it's something you can put in on any home. They'll pull the old windows out and stick the impact windows in. The homes are built to a Miami-Dade standard, which basically says it can withstand winds up to, I believe it's 150, 160 miles an hour. But if it's anything in that range or beyond, if it's a direct hit, there's gonna be damage no matter what. That's just what it is. So you do have a choice. And this is where you think of the fight or flight. Are you somebody that wants to stick around and check it out? Or are you gonna get out of Dodge? The last thing we're gonna talk about before getting out of Dodge is back on the insurance topic. Just like insurances, take pictures of all your belongings so that if anything does happen in this storm, that you'll be able to account for all your belongings should they get swept away. Okay, the makings of a storm. Now, when a storm is coming, we generally start hearing about it 7 to 10 days ahead of time. So you start to see all these spaghetti plots, all these colored lines racing across. There's an American version, there's a European version. They're all over the map on the TV, and they're telling us all these possible ways it can go. It's on TV all day long. They can't stop talking about it. Now, within 5 to 7 days, that's where you're going to start to see that cone of uncertainty, where they're now going to draw this little bubble kind of a thing that takes the storm in a range of width through a path, and it kind of shows you where it could or could not go. So one side of the storm is always going to be stronger. It's the right side of the storm. It is going to do the most damage, so you want to be aware of where you're going to fall on that. And if the eye happens to go right over you, well, then you're probably going to get the brunt of the storm on the front end and the back end. You need to decide early if you're staying or leaving. Are you fighting or are you taking off? There's a reason behind this. There's going to be a point during a storm where they're going to, and when I say they, that's the government, they're going to tell you that they're going to put an evacuation in place. It's a suggestion, not so much as mandatory. They might say mandatory, but what are they going to do? Come drag you out of your house? So you have to decide, are you going to get out, or are you going to just hunker down, put the shutters up, get your supplies, and make sure that you're taken care of to get through the storm? This needs to be decided in advance, because once the evacuation starts, the process of getting out of the state is not quick nor easy, especially when you're coming out from the south end. Some of these commutes can be up to 3.5 days, not hours, days, because the bigger the storm, the more people that are getting out. They're cramming the roads. Think about the gas. We just had this gas scare, this gas shortage recently. What happens when a hurricane comes and people can't get gas to get out? Everybody panics, because half the people already went and filled up their vehicles and all their containers and everything else that are staying here. Now you're trying to leave the state. How are you getting out without your gas containers? And where are you going to carry them? Most cars, you don't want to carry gas containers. Keep that in mind if you're going to be getting out of Dodge. Flights, you're normally going to want to get on those days ahead of time, because those are also going to go away very quickly. And when the winds get to a certain speed, they're going to shut them down altogether. So forget about that plan. Also, when you're evacuating out of an area, they open up the emergency shoulder on the side of the road where you're not supposed to travel normally. They open it up to encourage more traffic to move through there. So you can only imagine what kind of show that's going to be. Now, if you're going to stay in place, you need to start preparing. And what a lot of people have suggested is if you're going to the grocery store on a weekly basis, maybe pick up a case of water extra here and there as you go and just keep it stashed, because this is hurricane season. It's 6 months worth. So it won't hurt to have an extra case of water. Having some canned food that's available, that won't hurt. Just make sure they're things you'll normally eat. Don't just get them to get them. Like a can of Spam that you know you would never ever eat normally. Don't get it just to have something like that for the storm. Chances are the storm isn't going to come. You're not going to need it. And then you're going to end up throwing something away that you're never going to use. And on that note, don't hoard. Do everybody a favor. Only get what you need. And really, toilet paper's not that big of a thing right now, so you don't need a ton of that either, but just do the basics. You're going to want the water, some canned food, batteries, flashlights. A lot of people go out for generators thinking they're going to need it. Now, here's something to be aware of. Home Depot, Lowe's, and all those will not take back generators that are bought before a storm, because they know that it's one of those buyer's remorse things that are going to get returned right away. They've got stock amounts of things in stock that they need to keep balanced, just like everything else. So if you're buying a generator, you're buying a generator. You also want to consider some of the things you're going to need after the storm as far as cleaning up. So maybe some gloves, some saws, some bug repellent. If your power is out and you don't have air conditioning or fans or any of that stuff, you're going to want to keep the bugs off you somehow. The only way might be bug repellent. Now, in the preparatory stages of things, not only are you going to get water that you're going to drink, fill up your bathtubs, fill up trash cans, fill up containers of water. Because what a lot of people don't think of is you've got to use the facilities, right? How are you going to flush? You need water to flush. If the water supply is cut off, especially for those of you on well and septic, when your power's out, you're not getting water out of the well. So you better have a good stock of water for whether it's washing up or flushing toilets or cleaning up. You're going to need a water supply kept somewhere. So please keep that in mind. And you're going to do this maybe a day or two before the storm gets here. Now, more preparation before the storm gets there is not only you're going to put your shutters up. So you've either got the electric shutters where you push a button and they roll down. You've got accordion shutters, you pull them together and lock them down. Or manual style, which is you back the screws out, put the metal panel in place, and screw it back down again. There's also last resort, and this is for those older homes. Unfortunately, I was put in a position to have to do this once myself. But you literally have to take a concrete bit on a drill, pre-drill the hole, then get the concrete screws and screw those boards into the wall. It is a time-intensive process. If you haven't done it on the home yet, and there's no pre-drilled holes, allow yourself plenty of time to cover these openings, because they're going to need multiple screws in each board to secure it in place. Outside of putting shutters on, you should also look around your yard. Anything that's loose, anything that can be picked up and thrown, if it's the neighbor's yard, if it's your yard, if it's anywhere nearby, make sure it's taken care of, because those will become projectiles. Also, if you have a vehicle that you cherish, make sure that your garage has space to put it in, or find somewhere to put it before the storm gets here. Now, with hurricanes, there's one of two types of people. You're either somebody that's all getting excited and you want to go have a hurricane party. You've got to heard about a hurricane party so far if you've talked to anybody about it. There are people, and I may have to admit it, but I'm not ready to do that just yet, that will get together before a storm and have a little party. Kind of like a welcome party. So that's the one style person. The other one is the one that's going to hunker down and get everything all tucked together and kind of start building that fear within them before it gets here. And again, that's okay. If you're afraid of the storm, it's okay. I'm not knocking anybody for that. I'm just not that person. So again, you might want to consider leaving if you are one of those people, or you could go to a shelter. Yes, we have shelters here in Florida. Again, I've never been to one. I've only heard stories, horror stories about them, because once you get inside this thing, they're not letting you out until the all clear happens. So once you go through those doors, know that you're staying. You're in for the long haul. However long that storm's coming for, you're in. If the power goes out and they have no backup source, think about that as well, because now you've not only lost lights and air conditioning, but there's no circulation within this place. So now you've got a bunch of warm bodies in this enclosed building that is going to be dimly lit with whatever lights people brought in, flashlights and lanterns and things like that, and you still can't get out till the storm passes. I don't know. Doesn't sound too enticing to me. It sounds more like a prison than a shelter. If you are going to use a shelter, plan ahead again, because there are a lot of folks that will use a shelter and it will fill up in advance of when you think it might. So that could be a day ahead of time, not just a couple hours. So plan accordingly if you want to be in one of those shelters. Now, power will most likely go out during a storm, so you want to turn your freezer and refrigerator on max. When you do this, take some of those water bottles that you already have, maybe even the gallon ones, take a little bit of water out of it and stick it in the freezer. Let it freeze really good. And again, you're taking some of the water out so it doesn't overexpand and crack the container, because this is going to be used to help preserve your food when it starts to warm up. At the same time, once that ice is melted, now you've got extra drinking water. Just one more way to preserve the supplies that you have to get through the storm and after the storm. Now, after the storm, a couple things to keep in mind. Once again, you've got your supplies to start cleaning up. Watch for down power lines. Make sure you call those in. If you've got cell service, you may not even have that. If you have family nearby, it might be a good thing to have two-way radios. You can communicate that way. Maybe your neighbors, same thing, two-way radios. Account for everybody that's in your group. Assess the damage on the home. Be aware again of those down lines, and don't go driving anywhere. Not only is there going to be standing water that could be flood level, which you don't know what's under there, but there's going to be debris on the road as well. So let's not create any more emergency situations for all of these firefighters and police officers and all the other people that are out there on the road trying to take care of all those people that were stuck in this and do need help. Now, while all this sounds like it could be kind of traumatic and kind of terrible to go through, again, not everybody has that experience, but there are some people that have. But you know what? They still live in Florida. Because when you take the lifestyle of living in what we view as paradise 365 days out of a normal year, and you put that up against a storm every couple years, man, that trade-off, I'd take that all day, every day. A storm, yes, it could cause damage. That's why you have insurance. And you also have the ability to leave. So if your personal safety is something that you value and don't want to put in harm's way, then get out. But you've always got an amazing place to come back to. You've got insurance to protect you and repair what was damaged. And then you go about that same life that you had beforehand of the 365 and sunshine. Well, that's a little bit about what you need to know about living with hurricanes when you're in Florida. If you want to learn a little bit more about what it's like living in this part of Florida, any part of Florida, check out one of these other videos. And if you've got a question for me, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.